Welcome to Flip Devotional, the podcast, where each week Martha Shannon, the author of Flip Devotional, the book, and Steve Shannon discuss the readings from the week. If you haven't gotten Flip Devotional, the book, it is still available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, a little pricier than I think it should be. You can get the ebook on Barnes & Noble for just $9.99. And I'm now posting the scriptures that we are going over on the podcast thingy. So when you pull up the podcast, all the scriptures are there for each day. So you could pull those up ahead of time, and you could read through them and then listen to the podcast. Or you could read one, listen to that day, read the next one, listen that day. You know, there's so many different ways you could do it. But those who don't have the book, I want you to be able to read the scriptures for yourself, because that was the whole purpose of writing this book, was to get people reading their Bible themselves. And I know people struggle to do that. They struggle to know what to read, how much to read. So if you want to join us in that way, it is very available for you. Would love to hear if people are enjoying this. I did get to hear from a friend last night who said hey, Amanda, loves listening to it, that she is learning a lot about the Bible that she didn't know, which again that's the whole point of Steve and I doing this podcast, is to just share our little bit of wisdom and thoughts and to get you all thinking. So welcome. We are going to get started. We are doing April 14th through April 20th. So kind of in the middle of the Easter story and all that's going on. The whole month of April, the scriptures are all about Easter. So April 14th, it's Luke 23, 13 through 25. And this is when Jesus comes before Pilate and Herod continued. So last week was when he was brought in to them, and Herod and Pilate became friends.
Yeah, went to Pilate, then went to Herod, is now back to Pilate.
And they're kind of teaming up. So here we are, still with Pilate. At the beginning, it says Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people. I'm like, so who didn't he call?
Correct. That's going to cover everybody.
All right, we are all there together. So he calls them all in, and he's like, you brought me this man. I don't see any reason he deserves death. He's like, I'll punish him and release him. And the crowd was not okay with that.
Right, and punish him for what?
I think he was just going to punish him because the people wanted him to be killed. And so Pilate is giving them a little bit.
Okay. Could very well be.
I think he's just like, okay, I was a school teacher, and there were times when some kid got in trouble and someone was like, oh, he should be put in school suspension for the day. And the principal or whoever would say, okay, how about just during your class?
Yeah.
And you get a break from him, he gets a break from you, and because he really doesn't deserve more than that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I feel like Pilate is.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, all right, I'll give him something.
Yeah.
Just to appease you, but.
And again, he's accused by the chief priests, the rulers, of inciting the people to rebellion. And I guess you could say he was inciting the people to think about their faith differently, but he wasn't inciting the people against Rome, right? Or even the chief priests or rulers. he held them accountable. He told the chief priests, right, and all that stuff. But I guess they figured rebellion's going to get Pilate's attention.
Right.
So-
Right. And so they apparently they had this deal where you could swap prisoners.
Yeah, and it's not here, but I think in other gospels, it's at the Passover. They would release one prisoner. And I never know what happened to that prisoner.
Yeah.
I mean, is released to an angry mob, which wouldn't be good.
I
Just
think
release.
the mob is so angry at Jesus.
Yeah. But I mean, just release the prisoner. Am I incentivized to break the law?
Right.
The weeks before Passover? There's a chance I'll be released. So.
Yeah. Yeah. But it would be interesting if we had information on what happened to Barabbas.
Yeah.
Because, was he changed? Did he realize who Jesus was?
Yeah.
Did he, did he go to the crucifixion?
Yeah. And he had been thrown in prison for an insurrection in the city. Right? And for murder. But an
Yes.
insurrection. An insurrection is rebellion.
Yeah. Yeah. And so again, the crowd keeps saying, crucify him. And it says for the third time, he spoke to them, why? What crime has this man committed? And he still says, I find no reason.
Right.
And he says again, I'll punish him and release him. And they just keep shouting and pushing. And he finally is like, okay, fine. Okay.
Yeah.
He released Barabbas. And it says surrender Jesus to their will. So,
Yeah. Go ahead. I've had enough. Right. So
Jesus has been arrested, technically accused. So the next step is April 15th, Matthew 27 through 31. So a short little passage. And it's just all the mocking,
yes.
which
Yeah.
was so unnecessary.
Yeah.
He has been arrested. Everyone knows what his fate's going to be. Why could they not move straight to that?
Yeah.
But it's like they played this little game.
Yeah.
And
Hail, King of the Jews. They spit on him. Gave him. Is this for scarlet robe?
a
Right.
twisted crown of thorns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it says they set it on his head. I can't imagine they gently set it on his head.
Right.
So, and the crown of thorns. I didn't know this. We had the opportunity to go to Paris some number of years ago, and Notre Dame Cathedral was closed because of the fire. They were still rebuilding it. You could go outside. There's a big crowd outside anyway, but you couldn't go in because it was still being. But on our flight home, the guy in front of me was watching a movie about the fire at Notre Dame Cathedral, and it had English subtitles, so I could follow along and read it and watch the movie at his expense. Have not found that movie here yet, Netflix or someplace else, but it's worth watching. But in the movie, and I didn't realize this, Notre Dame Cathedral, they believe they have the actual crown of thorns.
Wow.
And I think when it was, some king bought it for a huge sum of money as a relic. Obviously, if you could get the crown of thorns, why wouldn't you? It was actually locked in a secure place, and they had a replica out that you could then see if you went inside. You saw the replica, not the actual, because that was too valuable. Could be stolen. And in the movie, unrelated to the reading, the guy who knew where it was and the combination was outside of Paris at a meeting, and the city was just shut down, locked up. All the little streets and such couldn't get around. And part of the story is him getting to Notre Dame in time as it's burning to get the crown of thorns out.
Wow.
Which he did. So Notre Dame Cathedral believes they have the crown of thorns purchased by the King of France some year.
All right. So if any of our listeners have any idea what this movie is or how it can be, what the name of it is, and how
it's like the fire at Notre Dame or something.
We can watch it. Let us know.
Yeah. But back to this. Mocking again, spitting, hitting, abusing. This happened at the Sanhedrin. The chief priest did the same, very similar things to him, prophesied who said he knew all this stuff. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And during the Easter season, it's probably the only time we read some of these scriptures. And again, because we know the end of the story, we often breeze over some of these parts. One, we don't like to read them. We don't like to think about Jesus being mocked and having a crown of thorns put on his head and stripped and beaten and all these things. We don't like that. We know how it ends. So we just often jump to the end and go, well, all this happened, but he was risen from the dead.
Yeah.
And
there was the resurrection.
He did end up with his Father, and everything ended up fine. Like it's a good ending. But I also think it's just really important to realize what Jesus went through. And it's not like he didn't feel these things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he bled like anybody else. He was humiliated like anyone else. He was beat and bruised and, so yeah, he suffered immensely before the cross.
Yes.
Before the cross.
Which brings us to April 16th, Luke 23, 26 through 34. And this is the crucifixion.
Yeah. And other Gospels, real quick, back on that. There's some Gospels where he was whipped as well.
Yes.
So. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's unbelievable suffering.
Yes. Yes. And for having done nothing wrong.
Nothing wrong.
But having it done to him because of all the wrong that we've done.
Yes. And last week, your will, Lord, not mine.
Yeah. So April 16th and April 17th are the crucifixion. So it's divided into 2 days. Luke 23 starts in 26 and goes to 43 for the 2 days. So the first part is when the soldiers lead him. They're going up to the
Golgotha?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
skull, mountain, that's what it was called. Must look like a skull. And that's where the crucifixions were held.
And they seized Simon from Cyrene, who was on his way in from the country, and put the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. I can just sit with that for a minute, because this poor guy, it's like, I don't know, you're coming home from the grocery and you're trying to get your stuff in. You're trying to get where you need to go. And someone comes in, oh, hey, no, put all that down here. You need to do this. Like, did he even know what was going on? Yeah.
And there's no indication. It doesn't say he did. But it was a Roman soldier, and they used the word soldier. Mm-hmm. But obviously they were soldiers.
Yeah,
they
so
were
you're
also,
not going to say no.
Right. And they were really police as well. They had dual function, they kept the peace, so to speak. But yeah, so Simon's going to say, okay, And after all Jesus endured, that's why someone else had to carry the cross. He probably didn't have the strength,
Right.
Or, the other place he was whipped, and you got to put a rough piece of wood. Because it was a rough piece of wood. It wasn't a nice sanded tabletop.
Good point, yeah.
So, more suffering.
More suffering. He has women and other people. It says a large number of people are following They're crying, they're upset. And Jesus speaks to them and said, don't weep for me. Weep for yourselves. Because, he knows he's going to be okay.
Yeah.
He knows he's going to rise from the dead. He knows he's going back to his Father. So, because he also knows that when he goes, the Holy Spirit's going to come and be with them. So it's going to be better for them and stuff. But
yeah. But even this point, right? Because this is really the last conversation, I think, before he's on the cross, right? He's worrying about other people. He is other focused at this point in time, right? After what he's endured in the previous day and a half, whatever day, right? Not a long time. He's still worrying about other people, right? Don't weep for me now, weep for yourselves and for your children, right? Because it's going to get bad eventually. But he's still focusing on others. So,
yeah, and then they're crucified. So he's up there with the two criminals, one on each side. And this is when he says, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. So even then, he's thinking of them, praying for them, really is what that is. And then they divide up his clothes by casting lots. Again, some of this stuff is just like...
Yeah. And that could have been a standard activity.
Maybe.
But still, and I think it was said in the Old Testament, some of this stuff was in the Old Testament. But they clearly, right?
Yes. Then the next day, April 17th, continuing this, so people are watching, and then they're like, he saved others. Let him save himself if he's God's Messiah, the chosen one. They're still just mocking him. They offered him wine vinegar.
Yeah, and they say save yourself 3 times. 3 times, right? It was the ruler, save yourself. The soldier, save yourself. One of the criminals said save yourself and us, but save yourself.
Wow, I didn't see that.
Peter denied him 3 times. Simon Peter, right? So the 3, and we keep reading, there's another occasion where 3 times the same thing is said. So.
Yeah, I didn't notice that at all. Then they write down on, I guess, a piece of wood and nail it to the top of the cross that says, "This is the King of the Jews." And I wondered if this is mocking or not, because in another scripture, it's actually the companion verse for this one. And if you don't know, on Flip Devotional Facebook page, has the companion verses for the month. And if you did Flip Devotional last year and you want to read something different but still kind of stay in the theme with us, there are companion verses. So April 17th companion verse is John 19, 17 through 27. And it's the same part of the story, but in John, it says that Pilate had the sign made. So I feel like Pilate did believe that he was the King of the Jews. He's the one who said, I don't see that he's done anything wrong.
Right. Or that's his way of aggravating the religious leaders who brought Jesus to him.
Yeah.
But something, yeah. But because this is just a sign, but other gospel, well, John, obviously, and the religious leaders said, please take that down.
Oh.
Some gospel, I think it says that
Okay.
sign, you know.
Yes, I
Yeah.
remember that now.
Yeah. And then, but, you know, he said, no. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and Pilate put it up there so no one can just go
correct.
take it down.
Yeah. Unless you want to be there yourself.
So I don't know what the sign's intention was. Whether it was mocking or it was, hey, this is the King of the Jews. Like, I'm thinking it really is.
Yeah.
So I'm putting the sign up there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't either. But I would think most people think it's mocking, right? But Jesus never called himself King of the Jews.
No.
You know, but I think it's either way. It's was intended to be harmful, either mocking or, you know, Jesus or mocking the religious leaders, whoever it was, right? You know, and then at the end, one of the criminals, right, says, Jesus, remember me when you get to your kingdom. Right? So he must have knew, right, something about it. And Jesus said, you'll be with me in paradise. Right? I'm sure the other criminal says, whoa, wait a minute.
Well, the other criminal is the one who's like, save yourself
And us.
and insulting him and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, well,
Yeah. Aren't you the Messiah? So, I mean, this was a thing people knew about, was paying attention to. So,
And then April 18th is Mark 15:33 through 41. And so Jesus has been crucified. He's up on the cross. And it says at noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m. So 3 hours of darkness.
yeah.
I mean, we've had solar eclipse
I was going to say, that's a long eclipse.
where it gets dark. Now it's not dark, because you can still see,
Yeah.
but it's definitely different and kind of eerie.
Yes.
And an eclipse lasts minutes.
Minutes.
So 3 hours of that, and I don't know that it was a solar eclipse or what. But anytime it gets kind of that eerie dark,
Yeah.
I at least
What's going on?
look out the window and like, this is weird looking.
Yeah.
So so for 3 hours, Jesus is on the cross, and he says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Our pastor preached on this recently.
Shout out to Dan.
Yeah. And do you remember what you said about it? It's like when he became human.
Yes.
All human.
All human, right? Because again, it's not Father, why have you forsaken me? It's my God, why have you forsaken me? Right. So at that point, he is all human, right? He's suffering. He you know, obviously he's God and man, all that. You know, what does that really mean? But I think at this point, he feels the separation. He feels the abandonment. And I think, I mean, it's an awful time, but I think there's times in our own life we feel maybe not forsaken, but separated from, right?
I think there are times, I don't think God ever forsakes us, but I think there are times when we feel like he's not there.
Right.
And we're just like, oh my.
And it's probably our actions that makes us feel this separation.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I don't know how long he felt that, but I mean, this is Jesus who is connected to God all the time and knows it. So
Yeah.
I think any amount of time for him is like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. But he says this, my God, why have you forsaken me? Some who were standing near heard this, and they said, "Listen, he's calling Elijah." Someone ran and filled a sponge with wine vinegar, put it on a staff, offered it to Jesus to drink, said, "Now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes." With a loud cry, Jesus breathed his last breath. That's a really short period of time and fairly detailed events, which I think adds to, help you understand. This really is that point of feeling forsaken. He was very near death. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like noon, right? It was just that one moment. So it all, one after the other.
Yeah, and then the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and that's always been a part of the story that I remember people talking about, and that I just thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because apparently it was a really tall curtain.
Yeah.
And for it to be to rip a curtain at all isn't easy. But if a person was going to do it, you
and
would
this
go
was at
from
the temple. This was built in the Old Testament. Moses
right.
got specific direction from God how to make the curtain. Mm-hmm. And it was the holy place inside the, right?
Right.
So,
the Holy of Holies.
The Holy of Holies. So this was, it wasn't just a curtain
right.
on a window. It was a door, essentially.
Yeah. And if a person was going to rip it, they would rip it from the bottom to the top because they can't reach the top.
Right.
Because it's way high up there. And it's easier to rip from bottom to top. But the fact that this was torn from the top to the bottom is just another sign that it was God.
Yeah. And it's interesting, you never hear about the curtain.
What do you mean?
Well, after it was torn, there's no discussion. It doesn't show up again in the Bible where there's this, maybe there's some other story. Maybe, is there some origin that the religious leaders made up some story about the curtain? But this is the last reference in the New Testament. Obviously, from this point forward, it's all about Jesus, which you don't hear a lot about the religious leaders, but you still, it's clearly. And then the centurion who was standing there, surely this man was the Son of God, and it's capital S Son, right? Mm-hmm. And it was not surely this man was a son of God. It was the Son of God. So.
And then we have the women who are watching from a distance. Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James.
Yep.
And it says, in Galilee, these women followed him and cared for his needs. Many other women who had come up with him to Jerusalem were also there. Kind of interesting. Shout out to the women showing up.
Yeah.
Where were those men?
They all ran, right? And two, if I want to rationalize, were they also known as followers of Jesus? Where the women followed him, but the disciples were clearly identified as so were they afraid at that point to go?
Women had no power.
Right.
Women had no something.
And
so
these women were watching from a distance. Mm-hmm. So it was probably a crowd. It was probably an event people went to. Kind of weird, but still,
Yeah, well, there's no TV.
No TV. Cable was down.
So, okay. So April 19th is the burial of Jesus, John 19:38 through 42. Joseph of Arimathea asked Pilate for the body. says Joseph was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly,
Right.
because he feared the Jewish leaders. And with Pilate's permission, so, again, goes back to Pilate kind of being, I just feel like Pilate has a soft spot for Jesus.
And other gospels, remember, Pilate washed his hands of it, right? I was going to say this, kind of interesting. Rolling Stones, they have a song, Sympathy for the Devil. And one of the lyrics is, Pilate washed his hands and sealed his fate. So it gets a reference. As
Wow.
well. Yeah. So, but it's and obviously Pilate didn't have to do that. And I suspect there was no eagerness to get bodies off a cross.
Right.
I mean, the Romans didn't care, right?
Yeah, I assume not.
Yeah.
And it says he was accompanied by Nicodemus. Now, I don't think we've talked about Nicodemus yet. I know he comes up sometime in Flip Devotional. But Nicodemus was the man who went to Jesus at night.
Yeah.
Just like Joseph, he was believed Jesus, but was worried about the Jewish leaders.
Yes.
Because he was one.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
And Nicodemus went to him at night. It was like, kind of like, who are you? Are you the Messiah? Are you? And teach me. And but snuck in there when no one would see him.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he was
now-
a Pharisee, right? And I looked it up. He was the story of you must be born again.
Yes.
That was Nicodemus.
Yes.
How does that happen? And Joseph of Arimathea, he was a member of the Sanhedrin who Jesus went before. I mean, so, these are two folks who took a risk. They had something to lose, really, right?
But I think they feel like at this point, like
Yes.
we have to.
Yeah.
It's like this guy was for real,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we believe him, and now we're gonna step out.
Yeah. And Nicodemus brought myrrh, which remember, the wise men brought myrrh. Frankincense, myrrh, I guess gold
And
frankincense.
gold, yes.
Yeah. And aloe, but 75 pounds.
Yes. Yes. How do you even carry that much?
It's a lot. And strips of linen. I mean, he knew what to do and was prepared, right?
Yeah.
This is done in accordance with the Jewish burial customs. So.
Yeah.
Oh. So they put him in a tomb.
Yes. Yeah. And then April 20th, the last day for this week, Matthew 27, 62 through 66. So I I like this. So they had heard rumors that Jesus had said, the people had said that he's going to rise from the dead
Right.
in 3 days. And
That deceiver. That's what the Pharisees called Jesus.
and so, yeah, they, of course, don't believe that that's going to happen.
Right.
At
No.
all.
No.
But just in case,
Right.
we
Well, it
should
says
probably,
his disciples may come and steal the body.
just to prove, yeah. So they're like, okay, we'll guard the tomb. Make it as secure as you can.
Yeah.
And that way they won't be able to steal the body.
Yeah.
They put the seal on the stone and they post a guard
Yeah.
and ha.
Yeah. And the seal is probably just wax, but
Right.
it creates, it doesn't make it more secure, but it shows if it's been moved or tampered with.
Right,
So,
right.
but again, the Pharisees are just making sure this doesn't come back. None of this is true. And it's interesting, based on the reading, the last deception will be worse than the first. But who was really the deceivers? It was the Pharisees. They were making up stuff as they went, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
at one point, they had witnesses, and they even paid witnesses to make something up, and their stories were so flawed. So, but
Yeah. So
sometimes you are what you are guilty of what you accuse others of being.
So we end this week with Jesus in the tomb,
In the tomb, secure,
And-
guards.
guarded, wondering what's going to happen. But we'll have to wait till next week to find out.
Gotta wait.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to this week's Flip Devotional, the podcast. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, follow, download, share, whatever it is you can do with our podcast so that more people hear it. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.